Hi everyone, my name is Bryn Goldsmith. I serve as a career advisor in our Career Development Services office, where we help you with everything from career exploration to preparation, and even beyond that, which is what we're going to talk about today, which is getting set for grad school success. So today we're going to talk about all things grad application, whether or not you should go to grad school. We're going to start with a conversation about that. And then once you decide that grad school is the place for you and you want to apply, a lot of different application pieces and some tips and tricks to help you be successful on that application process. So let's get started. So the first question you should ask yourself is, should I go to graduate school? And really, what is driving this want, this desire for me to go to grad school? Is it because I don't know what else to do right now and it feels like the safest option to continue going to school? Those feelings are valid. But you should also consider some of these other questions too, because with grad school, there are definitely some costs and some considerations to think about before diving headfirst into that. There's also no shame if you decide that you want to wait to apply and jump right into a grad program immediately after finishing with your undergrad. There's no shame in waiting a little bit, working full time, and maybe even at that point, you'll be with a company who will help you pay for your graduate degree. And so whatever your story is, we can talk to you about that and really sit down one-on-one and have a conversation with you in our office to think about, is graduate school really the best option for me right now? And financially and otherwise, am I going to be able to do this right now? So some other questions you should ask yourself when you're thinking about grad school. What do you want to do after you graduate? If you want to be a mental health counselor, yeah, you should probably go to grad school sooner rather than later, right? Because you know that to be a practicing counselor or therapist, you do need that graduate degree. However, if you're kind of considering some different options and it's not really set in stone that you need a master's or doctorate degree to follow those dreams, there's no shame in, again, waiting and discovering a little bit more about yourself and your goals, and also exploring more programs than feeling rushed into going into a grad program right off the bat. Now, there's also thousands of different degrees, different programs, institutions that may be offering your programs of interest. And so the grad school process is really going to be filled with some pretty rigorous research and talking to as many people as you can within those different programs, and also your contacts here at FGCU. Your professors are a great resource for you because all of them have terminal degrees, most of them, in your desired field. And so talking to your professors about that grad school process and any advice that they have for you will be incredibly influential as you think about this grad school process. Now, another part of the research process is finding or narrowing down which schools offer the program that you're interested in. And again, do you want to stay in state? Do you want to go out of state? And what do those cost differences look like? And what are those programs and the faculty who teach in those programs? What does that look like for you? A big thing with graduate school is typically you're going to be doing research. It's not the case always, but for many graduate programs, research will be a component of your graduate degree. And so when you think about that, the importance of doing research with the programs that you want to apply for, doing research with the faculty and seeing what are their research interests, what does their professional experience look like, and making sure when you make your decision that you're choosing a program that has faculty that you would want to do research with and that you would want to learn from. Another consideration, of course, like we talked about already, is cost. How much do these programs cost? Are they offering graduate assistantships, any fellowship opportunities, or even funding for you to complete that degree? Another consideration, if you're a senior who's about to graduate and you think you want to go to grad school but you're not really sure, you may want to take a look at that application timeline and if that program requires you to take an exam before entering the program. So this is really good. Again, if you know your career goals are pretty much going to require you to get a graduate degree, you're going to want to be doing this research as soon as possible, right? To really make sure that you're setting yourself up for success with timeline, you're budgeting appropriately so that you can take these different tests, and you're leaving yourself plenty of time to get those letters of recommendation and do those other application pieces that I'm going to talk to you about today. And then another piece is thinking about all of those materials that they're going to be asking for you just to apply to the program, right? So a resume or a curriculum vitae, a CV, a personal statement, letters of recommendation, and sometimes test scores, which will differ based off of the school and the program. Now, thinking about that essential question, should I go to grad school? What I recommend for my students is to actually first find some examples of what your dream job might look like and see what they're looking for in a candidate. And so I pulled this example from the Conservancy of Southwest Florida, and they posted a director of environmental science position with this nonprofit. Now, looking at the education and experience they're looking for, they really want you to have a master's degree, and they even say PhD preferred. And so they even are looking for a terminal degree for this position. And so if you're looking at your dream jobs or jobs that look really exciting and interesting to you, and they are all requesting that you have some sort of an upper level degree postgraduate, then that's really something that you want to take into account. Now, thinking about researching programs, like we talked about, there are tons of different programs that exist out there at different institutions in different states and even different countries. And so there's a lot of research to be done in regards to which programs you should be applying for. And so some things that I would recommend you take a look at when it comes to researching the programs. So take a look at what classes you'd have to take with these different degrees. Do they align with your goals and things that interest and excite you? Also, of course, taking into account location. I work with a lot of environmental science or studies students that are thinking about pursuing a master's degree, and especially for students who want to pursue marine biology or things on the ocean, maybe looking at a location-bound school is really important, right? Because you may want to have more proximity to coastal areas where you could be doing that hands-on research. And so location is going to be really important for some of those different specific opportunities that you're interested in pursuing, but also location, there could be a difference when it comes to cost for in-state versus out-of-state. We talked about this already, looking at the faculty that are teaching within those programs that interest you and making sure that they have research interests or experience that aligns with your own. Also, those admission requirements. I've worked with plenty of students who either don't have the funding to take some of those tests like the GRE or different tests like that. And so they only apply for programs that don't require you take those tests. And so considerations like that could also impact which programs you're applying for. And also taking a look at the deadlines. So if you're a senior about to graduate and you just decided that you want to apply for grad school, typically a priority deadline is going to be around December or January for most programs. And so you may have missed priority deadlines, but you may not have missed regular admission deadlines. And so that's going to differ based off of the program and the institution. And so again, it's just going to take some of that individual research to see what that timeline and those requirements look like. So I pulled up an example here for FGCU's Masters of Arts in the Environmental Studies program. Now, an example of how I would walk a student through researching this program is by first just searching on Google, Master of Arts Environmental Studies FGCU faculty. And this faculty page will come right up for you, and you'll see the amazing faculty who teach within this program. Chances are, for every institution that you're looking for, they will have a faculty directory or a faculty page where you can actually click and look at the faculty who will be teaching these classes or that you'll be doing research in partnership with, and take a look at their bios of what their experience and research experience looks like. You can also look at those program requirements that will be listed with every institution. Again, look at those classes that you're going to take and make sure that you would feel confident or excited to take those different courses. Now let's talk about financing your degree. Not the most fun topic, but a very important one that I think is important to consider early on in your grad school application journey. So there are some options to finance your graduate degree. They may look a little bit different than what financing your undergraduate degree looked like, okay? So there are opportunities for financial aid that differ based off of the state and the institution. So again, you're gonna have to do some of that individual research and reach out to their financial aid departments with each institution that you're thinking about. But you can also think about graduate assistantships. This is the most common way that graduate students fund their graduate degrees. A graduate assistantship typically means that you're either a research assistant, so you may be working alongside a faculty member to complete research, and you'll be paid a stipend for doing that, as well as typically they will also give you a tuition waiver as well. But assistantships may look different across the board. Here at FGCU, we do have some graduate assistantships, typically within the counseling department. Our Dean of Students, the student care and conduct side, has also offered some graduate assistantships before, but these are going to look different based off of every institution and department. And so you're going to want to do some of that research and that contacting these different programs to really see what those opportunities might look like for you. Fellowships are basically the graduate school option for a different kind of scholarship, and those are based off of academic achievement, and it'll be a application process to apply for those fellowships. Again, that's going to look different based off of every program and institution that you're thinking about. Grants and scholarships, of course, is another option, and then your classic loans. Again, think about what those loan options are for you if you end up having to take out loans for your graduate degree. Think about, did you already have to take out a considerable amount of loans for your undergrad? Maybe you want to take some time and start kind of paying those off before jumping into another graduate degree and taking out tens of thousands more in loans. So a lot of considerations when it comes to financing your degree. I encourage you to pursue your dreams, especially if your dream job requires you to get that graduate degree. But again, I also want to make sure that we're setting you up for success and a clear understanding of what that financial piece is going to look like when it comes to grad school. Another consideration here, some programs will list a priority deadline for application. Like I said, typically it's going to be around December, January, so a little bit early. So make sure that you're planning ahead. Typically, if you apply by that priority deadline, then you're going to have first or priority consideration for some of those graduate assistantships, scholarships, or other funding opportunities. So make sure that you are applying by those priority deadlines for that consideration. So again, some other costs that I want you to consider that just are within the application process alone. So consider when you're budgeting out what this process is going to look like for you. Application costs. Typically, we do recommend that you're applying to maybe 3 different types of schools. So similar to maybe your strategy when you applied to undergrad, sort of more of a safety school, more of a challenge school, and then a dream school, right? Now, there's going to be differences with the application costs with each of those different types of institutions. At FGCU, our application fee is just $30, but I've seen application fees for other institutions that range from anywhere from $50 to even $100. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that as one of those hidden fees that are associated with this process. You're also going to have to send your official transcripts to every single institution that you're applying for. And typically this is going to be around, I believe, $15. So just make sure that this is also a part of your budget because you're going to have to send an official one to every single institution that you're applying for. And so this is an important consideration too when thinking about narrowing down. Maybe I don't want to apply to more than 3 schools because this is a considerable amount of cost and effort to write different personal statements and tailor documents, letters of recommendation for all of these different schools. But of course, we can sit down with you in our office and really talk about what options are best for you in terms of what schools you're applying for and what do those costs look like. I've talked about this a little bit already, but those graduate level standardized tests are somewhat common still. So the most common one that I usually see is the GRE. This is somewhat similar to what you might remember about the SAT or the ACT. This is a standardized test covering a variety of different topics, and it's about $220 for you to take it. Now, you can take it multiple times, but remember, that's a pretty hefty cost. And so ideally, you'd only want to have to take it one time if your dream programs are requiring you to take it. Now, some programs don't even require a graduate standardized test anymore. And so that's where that research comes in, of making sure that you're doing that research with each program, making sure that you have a clear understanding of what those application requirements are for you to apply. Now, if you're thinking medical school or law school, you will absolutely have to take the MCAT for medical school or the LSAT. Some law schools now are changing to accept either the LSAT or the GRE, and so that's going to be different based off of each program too. And you can also choose which test do you feel like you're going to do the best on, or which do you feel like is going to benefit your application the most. And so just keep an eye on those prices, and also make sure that you're doing plenty of that preparation. And two, budgeting plenty of time to study for these tests if you do have to take them, and then also plenty of time for you to receive your scores, and maybe even have to take it a second time if you're not happy with your scores. So just make sure that you're planning ahead for some of those pieces as well. Good. So additionally, with some other grad school application elements, these are some of the most common pieces that most grad schools are going to require that you submit. So pretty much every program is going to ask for a resume, or you might see another term, CV, which is curriculum vitae. Basically, they're asking for pretty much the same content, which is your experiences and your accomplishments within those experiences, but a CV is just your cue that it's okay to submit a longer than one-page version of your resume, okay? A CV is typically used in higher education spaces that are really more focused on research. And so a CV is really more so dedicated to going into detail about your research, any publications, conference presentations, things like that. Whereas a resume is more so typically a 1 to 2 page document that's more so really tailored and focused for your most recent and relevant work or other professional experiences. Every program will also require you to submit a personal statement. Now, there are many terms that are sort of synonymous that you're going to see between different institutions that you're applying for. You may see personal statement, you might see statement of interest, statement of career goals, statement of research interests. There are many different types of statements that you may be required to write for each of your programs, and they may even require you to write a couple different kinds of statements. And so a personal statement, if they're asking for that, typically is about 2-page double-spaced, but different programs have different length requirements, so make sure that you're paying attention to that. A personal statement is really about you and your story. Why do you want to go to grad school? Why do you want to pursue this program specifically? And how is this program going to help you achieve your career goals and also benefit this community or this profession? And so you really want to be clear with articulating what that story is and what your goals are for that. A statement of research interest is a little bit different. It's more so they want you to identify faculty of interest that you would want to complete research with if you were selected for admission into that program. You would also want to talk about previous research experience that you have and how you want to continue or further that research or expand your research into other disciplines as well. Letters of recommendation. Typically, most programs are going to ask for 3 letters of recommendation. Now, who should you ask? This is really important. Typically, they will want you to ask people that you've worked with, done research with, or have had class with, okay? So typically, most of your letters are probably going to be from professors. Now, make sure that you leave your professors plenty of time, I would say months in advance, to write a really strong letter for you. Make sure that you're asking them respectfully, and again with plenty of lead time so they can write you a letter. And if they don't have capacity to write you a letter, or they feel like they can't write you a strong letter, then they're going to say no. And that's just your cue that you just should expand and ask some other faculty or people that you might be able to get letters from. You could also ask for letters from previous supervisors or managers that you've worked with, especially in a field that is related to what you want to pursue. And so I work with a lot of students who are applying for the Master's in Counseling program. And a lot of those students will ask a mix of faculty or their professors that they've had class with, but then also some of their mentors or supervisors that they've had internships with, specifically within the therapy or counseling field. So all of those are great options for letters of rec. You would never want to ask a family member or a personal friend for a letter of recommendation. We talked about standardized exams, sometimes especially for more of the creative fields, like a master's in fine arts, they're going to want to see a portfolio. And there are different modalities that sometimes they will accept for portfolios. And this could be different based off of each program. And so definitely you're going to want to take a look at that. They may want you to mail in samples of your work, or it may be more of a digital portfolio that you should start creating ASAP. So just be on the lookout for that. And we have some great resources on our website to support you with that as well. And then your ordering of official transcripts. We talked about that. Great. So going back to the standardized test conversation, this QR code will take you to Mometrics, which is a great resource that our library at FGCU offers totally for free for you. They have free prep courses all throughout Mometrics about different types of tests. So whether you're taking the LSAT, the MCAT, the GRE, or the GMAT, whatever that looks like for you, they will have free practice tests and even some great free videos that you can take a look at as well. Now, if your program is requiring a standardized test, or even if they're not, and you just want to take a look at what the average admitted student looks like, typically most programs are going to have some sort of an average student profile who's admitted into their program. And so this example was taken from FGCU's Master's in Environmental Studies, and they list what the average GPA and GRE scores are for their admitted student. So make sure again that you're just doing that research. Now, some programs also may have specific application requirements. This is really big for pre-med programs. So if you're thinking occupational therapy, physical therapy, PA school, all of those programs are going to want typically some patient care hours, and those are really specific. And so again, you're going to want to do that research into each program and make sure that you know exactly what they're going to be looking for in a candidate. Good. So going to that personal statement, we talked about this sort of an overview, but going into a little bit more detail here, they want to know your interest and motivation in the general occupation, the field of work that you want to pursue, that specific program and institution. You want to discuss how you became interested in your field and your overall career goals, and how this program and the faculty who teach within this program are going to help you get there. You want to go into some reasons why you believe you're going to be successful in this program and benefit your field. And again, why this grad program, why this institution specifically. And while you're answering those questions, it should be really clear what your story is. Do you have a specific story from your past that is inspiring you to pursue this field? Do you have a mentor or someone in your life that has inspired you to pursue this field? What really has inspired you to pursue this, and really tell that story in a professional and more of a storytelling way. This is also something that our career advisors can support you with, and we can review your personal statements for you. Again, like we talked about, different programs may have different requirements or even different specific prompts for you to explore when you're writing your statements. So again, just go back to those requirements. For example, our master's in bio here at FGCU, they want more so a 2-page cover letter that details your research experiences, whereas the master's in environmental science more wants that statement of purpose, including your academic goals, career goals, and research interests. And so they're very specific with what they're looking for. And so just again, do that research and make sure that you have a clear understanding of what they want you to write. We talked about this with some letters of rec, but I'll just leave this here for you to consider as well. Great. And this QR code will take you to our grad school page on our website, where we have tons of great resources for you to explore. We also, in our pathways at the top of our website, have specific communities or pathways that you can explore depending on what you want to pursue. And so if you're thinking pre-med, those are really specific pathways with some additional resources that I didn't get into today. And so I want you to go and explore those resources on our page there. Same with law school applicants. Again, that's a really specific process that I want you to really explore and do a lot of research about. And we have a specific law school applicant page on our website as well. So be sure to take a look at those resources and reach out to Career Development Services where you can meet with an advisor to really support you with this process.